Ready, Jeremy?
This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, I'd like to call the village board to order for Tuesday, December 8th. Roll call, please.
Trustee Williams.
Here.
Trustee Paul. Here. Trustee Zerbel. Here. Trustee Krieger. Here. Trustee Kabaki. Here. Trustee Flukie.
Here.
President Kardasky.
Here. Please stand for the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And please remember our men and women throughout the world in uniform. I need an action on the agenda, please.
Move to approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve the agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Okay, 5A, action items. Action regarding development agreement with General Capital for proposed senior housing and townhome development at 680 block of Mike McCarthy Way, parcel VA-56-4-1. Before we can discuss this item, I need to have a motion to reconsider the vote on this item.
I make a motion to reconsider the vote on item, what was it, 5A?
Okay, do I have a second to reconsider that?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to reconsider the action on the development agreement. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Okay, so we are going to be reconsidering the vote from last week. This was a very debated item. It was a very close vote, and we've gotten some new information that the developers have wanted us to reconsider the vote, and I will let Joel and Mr. Aaron take over.
I'll just make a quick few comments. Thank you, President Kardasky, for this, and members of the village board. Thank you for coming in tonight to review this item. As Mary had indicated, a lot of deliberation and discussion went into this particular item last week on Tuesday. Some additional details have been brought forward from the developer, which Aaron will be presenting to you here shortly. As indicated, we have a motion and a second to reconsider that item, and that is approved. Ultimately, this item will have to be amended, so the original motion will have to be amended tonight to be reconsidered from last week's meeting. Typically, this isn't how we like to kind of conduct these types of action items. Generally speaking, when we're dealing with negotiating development agreements, in particular agreements that are involving tax incremental financing, really kind of like to negotiate these items outside of the board chambers, and at the end of the day, what is presented to the village board is ultimately the best and final offer that the developer is willing to present. With that, however, we recognize that affordable senior housing is a very important topic. Was certainly discussed in my interview as an element that the board would very much like to see be brought forward into the community. And so because of that interest in providing this type of development, we felt it was worth an effort to bring forward again for possible reconsideration. We also know that there were elements as part of the revised proposal from the developer that had piqued some interest from some of the individual trustees, of which the motion to reconsider was brought forward. So again, I just want to emphasize that this is not typical to how we would like to conduct this type of activity. We would like to negotiate these things outside the meeting, and then again, bring back to you the best and final offer for your consideration and approval. So with that, I'll pass this on to Aaron, who can kind of provide some of the details on the proposal.
Okay. I believe you're all pretty familiar with the project at this point. So I think what I'll do is I'll dive into what the developer is proposing to address following the meeting last week. There are really 4 different bullet points identified in the green sheet. I'll list those out here. General Capital will fund the full cost of sidewalk connecting parcel VA 56-4-1 to Mike Van Park. Cost is estimated at $50,000. Bullet number 2, General Capital will work with the village to install a concrete slab and decorative bike rack to terminate the segment of sidewalk at Mike Van Park. Cost is estimated at $10,000. At the village's discretion, General Capital will fund the painting of bike sharrows or other appropriate markings on Borvan Avenue. That was bullet number 3. And bullet number 4, General Capital will contribute $25,000 towards sidewalk improvements to connect parcel VA 56-4-1 to Holmgren Way. If the village board does decide to take action on this and reconsider this, it should be conditioned on the inclusion of the bulleted pedestrian infrastructure improvements into the development agreement and award of the 9% WIDA tax credits in 2021 to General Capital. Sig Strout-Manis of General Capital is here in the audience, and I believe he has a brief presentation I'd like to give to you if that's all right with you.
Come up and state your name and address for the record, please.
Thank you. My name is Sig Strout-Manis. I'm with General Capital. The address is 6938 North Santa Monica Boulevard in Fox Point. Actually emailed my presentation because I also, I just thought it may be easier to focus on it a little bit. First of all, thank you for your willingness to attend the special meeting, and I do mean it sincerely. We don't take your time for granted. I know this is very unusual, but we really appreciate the opportunity to be back in front of you with some ideas and some new concepts for some improvements I think were important to several trustees from what we heard last week. So what I'd like to do is skip over the details of what we just talked about. You understand the 4 items that we decided that were appropriate to bring back to you. And I just wanted to talk a little bit about that piece of it. And this was a discussion of several of the unknowns.
Could you pull the mic just a little closer, Sig?
Sorry.
Thank you.
There you go.
Yep.
There was a discussion of several unknowns last week, and one of them was this, the sense that you need to push forward some of the public infrastructure, including the sidewalks, to support our development. And that's something that we felt that was in our control, and we wanted to address that. And so that's why we came forward with those 4 points. And I think that as Trustee Kubacki said, those would be costs that would be typically borne by the TIF. And so by us paying for at least the major connection and contributing toward the other connection toward Holmgren, we really felt that was taking some of the burden, some of the stress off the TIF for additional infrastructure improvements. I'm sorry, I'm fogging up. The important thing here is that we believe that this will go a long way, not just for our residents, but also the surrounding neighborhood and the TIF at large. And it's going to improve the physical appearance of that street and also, frankly, the marketability, which I think is another concern, is what happens to the rest of the TIF if this is just an island development. So we think that this is a positive kind of a spin-off of what we're proposing. We also want to address the big unknown of COVID and its impact on the health of the TIF. We don't know exactly what will happen with COVID and how it will affect future projects. However, as we mentioned last week, our project can move on despite COVID. It is not dependent on needing for this whole virus issue to be resolved. And I'd also make the side point that our project could, in fact, provide much needed an affordable housing option for seniors and for families that could be negatively affected by COVID and have come upon some hard times. So from this perspective, our project could make a positive impact on addressing the unknowns surrounding the virus issue. There's also some discussion of the lost opportunity cost of moving ahead with our project. And we'd like to just consider for a second the potential loss of this opportunity as it relates to the timing to make progress on one of the important priorities of the village, which is providing high-quality, affordable housing for seniors. And we described the timing issues surrounding the tax credit application and the changes to the program that will put this project potentially out of the running next year and potentially for many years to come. Well, there's always a hope that a shinier project could come out of the woodwork. The site has been vacant since 2014, and as we mentioned in previous meetings, our project isn't dependent on the economy, and we can proceed regardless of COVID. And by approving this project, you'll be helping us put our best foot forward to getting senior housing done here. And as we stated previously, we want to reinforce the point tonight. Our requests from the village are based on what we need to score at WIDA. And I want to emphasize, we're not asking for more, but we're also not asking for less than what we need to really make a solid application. That means the land, the TIF, the RFP, all these things that were in front of you. And so nothing is for certain. We believe our project will score well in this year's round. In fact, it's our highest scoring project of the projects we're working on. So we really do feel great about our prospects. So let me conclude, and I pass this out too, with some of just the summary of deal points, and I emailed this earlier, and if anyone needs a copy, I'll happily pass it out, but I just wanted to highlight a couple of things as a conclusion here on the deal points. And that is that this project brings high-quality, affordable senior housing to Ashwaubenon, which is a high village policy priority. The timing is critical. Major changes to the program make the project infeasible in the future. The proposed TIF incentive is cost neutral to the TID and is guaranteed by us, by the developer. And as we mentioned previously, the potential additional financial benefit of the TID could be up to $450,000 with a combination of $98,000, which is guaranteed, and $350,000 that's based on the inflation of the property value without the cap on the taxes that we're going to pay. We're agreeing to install this pedestrian and bike infrastructure, thus not causing an extra drain on the TIF. And finally, the project is catalytic in nature and will provide momentum to the TID with a vertical construction project that can come online, can actually be under construction next year. So with that, I'll take any questions, and I just really want to emphasize that we appreciate you being here tonight and to attend this special meeting. And we hope that you will reconsider last week's vote and vote positively for both the development agreement and the site plan, which we're willing to discuss both of those tonight. But thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions for SIG or the staff?
Yeah, can you go, Sig, can you go over, just for people that might be chiming in here on, via social media or internet, the proposal, the changes, the additions to the proposal now from the last time we met?
Sure.
Because what you presented here was just kind of an overview of everything, but can you separate what?
Yes, so there are four things that we committed to. Basically, what we heard are the sidewalks. Is that what you're speaking to? So we heard that sidewalks that could be costly, that there's not pedestrian connectivity on Borvan. That's what we heard. So we have it to the north on Mike McCarthy Way, but to make connections both to the east and west on Borvan, especially to the park. We heard about the park being this nice little highlight that our residents wouldn't be able to walk to without being in the street. So we asked Aaron to talk to the DPW and say, how much would it actually cost to put in a sidewalk connection? And they did an estimate based on other projects that are in the village. And we estimated it'd be between $50,000 and $60,000 to install a 6-foot sidewalk with all the appropriate stuff to get over to the park. And we said, we'd be willing to come to the table to actually guarantee and to fund that. Whoever installs it, the village can do it, we can do it, but we'll pay the 100% cost of that. And then related to that, once we got to the park, we're thinking about some of the concerns about bike safety and just kind of making it an amenity. So we thought, well, if the sidewalk is going to end over at the park, why not put something, a little terminus, kind of something at the end in the park? And so we talked about putting up a slab with a bike rack, a decorative bike rack that would work with the village and your rec department to figure out what that wants to be. And we'd pay the 100% cost of that. And also, we talked about bike markings or anything like that on Borvan that would make it, again, more pedestrian and bike friendly to go east or west on Borvan. That may be debatable whether it's needed, but if it is and you decide to do it, we would fund 100% of the cost of that. And the last thing is I went back and I looked more carefully at the connection over to Holmgren to make a sidewalk that would connect all the way over to Holmgren. There are numerous properties. It's a little less clear to me that you can just run a straight sidewalk. It might take a little engineering. Does it want to be up against a street? Does it want to have a terrace? Things like that. So we'd like to work with the village to decide how that wants to go in, and maybe that's more of a transitional piece that will be put in over time, but that we would contribute upfront at closing $25,000 toward that installation, which could be 75, or, you know, we don't really know. But we want to make a contribution to it again to kind of help minimize some of the concerns that we heard.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments, questions?
So, Sig, I'll start out here. Number one, this is a Section 42 housing development, correct?
Correct.
What are the, I believe we said it the last time, but can you tell me again what the rentals will be? Like what the cost of the rentals will be on these
Absolutely.
different units?
These are not, I have it in my folder. These aren't 100% set yet, but basically, of the units, there are actually 12 units that are market rate units with no income restrictions. So basically, those are also, those would be, let me see here. Those would be all those are all 1 and 2 bedrooms. And the price at the, so the price ranges from a 30% AMI unit for 1 bedroom is $393 a month, kind of at the starter end.
But that's if they qualify, is what
Correct.
you're telling me. So what's the cost of the unit at full cost?
Well, what is a market rate
Correct.
unit? That would be, I'm sorry, this is really small, and a market rate 1 bedroom would go for $700.
Well, it was
Oops, yes, that's
393
not
at
right.
40,
Correct,
yeah,
sorry.
40 at,
$900 bucks.
I was going to say,
I
it's gotta be,
apologize.
because it was 393 for 30%, you almost could take that times 3.
Yeah, it is.
So
It's
gotta be
just
closer.
over 900. I apologize, reading the wrong column. And then the 2-bedroom markets are 1150.
Okay. So I look at your proposal here, and I kind of to level set what it is that we are looking for from a senior living here in Ashwaubenon. And I believe to level set us, we need to look at this and say, all right, what we wanted to do is we wanted to find a senior place where seniors in Ashwaubenon that have homes that they could move to and still stay within Ashwaubenon. Hence, what that would do, it would open up residencies that new families could move in. So that's kind of the overall purpose of where we're going to. I look at the population of Ashwaubenon, which is about 17,000, and about 23% of that is 60 or older. So those are that comes on about 4,000 people that would possibly move into or have the ability to move in here. Then I start looking at the affordability, and I went back into it, and I went through this with my mother, I went through this with my aunt, so I was familiar with older regulations, so I wanted to familiarize myself. So I went back into that and looked at that, and basically if you have an annual income of $31,000 or above, you are not going to get any credit against, and this is within Brown County, you're not going to get any credit against it. So you're going to be paying the full $1,000 or $1,150 for your apartment, based on what I could see. Now, if you look at Ashwaubenon and where we are at, if you look at the poverty in that age group, it's about 6%. That's pretty low, so if you expand that out to 10%, we're talking about 400 seniors that could possibly go in here and take advantage of the affordability part of it. So I start adding all of that up, and I look at that, and I go, well, okay, that means we're starting to get a smaller and smaller subset. So I'm not sure that it's meeting what we're looking for. I think our seniors, and I'm not 100% sure, but I think they're looking for a senior community. I don't know that they necessarily are looking for a senior affordable housing. I think they want a senior community. I would love to volunteer and set up a subcommittee to go out there and find out that information. But I look at the other part of this, the townhouse part of this, I see that as another Orchid Ridge right across from Parkview. No different. The rules are going to be the same. I think you guys also would develop that. It's going to be the same type of property. That's up.
It's not.
Well, I
they're different
realize there's some
programs. They're
Chapter
different
8 in there, but this isn't going to be that far away from that because I realize some of it is not going to be that way. But 20 years from now, it's not going to be that far away from what that place looks like. So I start looking at all of that, and I'm not sure that that's what our seniors are really looking for. I think they're looking for a senior community. And then really, you look at what it's going to do to the TIF fund. I don't want to take, I'm not convinced that there's not a risk that it's in the red at the end. Greg had said he didn't think it's going to be in the red at the end. But if it is, that means my daughter or my grandson's going to have to pick up that bill. Because I'll be dead honest, by that time, yeah, I probably will be dead, okay? But bottom line for me is if I look at what you have proposed here, and like I said, I went through this with my mother, I went through this with my aunt, I actually went through this partially with my uncle too. I had a very small family, so nephew took care of a lot of that stuff. I don't feel this would be a place that I would recommend to my aunt or my mom or my uncle. It is no fault of yours. It is just where it is, what else is with it. I look at the whole package. I don't see it fitting into Ashwaubenon. Because if you start adding up and you start looking at all the numbers, I'll be honest, the people in Ashwaubenon, we don't have that low of income people. $31,000 a year, we're talking $2,600 a month. That's Social Security. And people are going to be making more than $2,600 a month. That means they're going to pay $1,000 to move there. They aren't going to have a garage. Their house now has a garage. They're not really gaining anything. They're going to a smaller place. I don't see our people in Ashwaubenon wanting to go do that. I just don't. I don't see the draw for them. Therefore, I think what it's going to happen is you'd end up seeing people from outside the community. Maybe, okay, we're going to go over there. And I go back to our purpose. What we were really looking for is we want senior living for people in Ashwaubenon to stay in Ashwaubenon. And when they get older, that's where they're going to want to stay. So, and again, Sig, it is nothing against your project. I just started looking at this. I started really doing my homework, started doing my research, and that's the conclusion that I've come up with.
I'm sorry.
Jay, I appreciate all the work you put into that, but I would have to maybe disagree with what our goal is. I don't think our goal is necessarily to keep people in Ashwaubenon to live in Ashwaubenon. I think it's to give them an opportunity to live in Ashwaubenon.
Fair enough.
As far as a community center or specific area, I'll look at downtown Green Bay, where they, all the developments that are going up there, that's not a senior developmental area like you're, in my mind, like Florida, places like that, but I understand what you're saying. But that's not all made up of young people down there. There's a lot of seniors that are downtown in the mix of everything, and it's not a dedicated area for just seniors. These opportunities don't come along very often, and that area has been dead for a long time. What's the next? What's going to happen behind this if we do not approve this? Nobody knows, but history tells us it's going to be a while before anything takes place. So I'm worried about a lost opportunity. And also, I think this is a very well thought out project and design that's going to spark further interest in the area. Is it a risk? Yeah, it's a risk. But as any business owner knows, every decision you make is a risk. You would rather be on, when you evaluate decisions based on risk, you definitely want to be on the side of the least risk possible. But me personally, and what I've told my kids over the years when they've tried to make decisions, or I've tried to make decisions, big important decisions, what's the worst case scenario, and can we handle that? Not that we want to go there. I mean, we want to evaluate the risk and be safe that the worst case scenario is not going to happen. But if it happens, nothing's for sure in life. But if it happens, can we handle it? And we can handle this. Worst case scenario. And if we pass this up, what's coming next? I think this is a perfect opportunity to take advantage, allow our seniors to stay in Ashwaubenon, or if somebody outside Ashwaubenon wants to move into Ashwaubenon, to take advantage of that as well.
Anybody else have any questions?
Can I ask a question of staff now or not? Yes. Greg, reading through the developer's agreement, it looks like, and looking at TIF 5 and TIF 3, that TIF 5 either overlays 3 or 3 overlays TIF 5, whatever the case may be. Is there any ability that TIF 3 can help with the funding of this because TIF 5 is so far in the red, or is that not possible, or how does that work with those two kind of overlaying each other?
It gets complicated. There's certainly a lot of rules you have to follow. The TIFs have to be certain types of TIFs, and you have to go through a whole amendment process. The Joint Review Board has to approve. So you're going to involve all the taxing jurisdictions. You're going to have to look at your timeline and that sharing relationship. And because their dates are so different, their close dates, we would really have to bring in some more expertise to help us through that process. I did bring that up with Brad Vigut about a month or two ago, and he just was really shying away from it. Like, it's complicated, and you take that step, it's an amendment, you only get so many amendments, and then there's just certain rules you have to follow, and it's not as simple as, oh, this TIF's doing great. And TIF 3, by the way, isn't necessarily out of the red yet. It's just about getting there, so it still has to worry about itself. But yeah, I mean, there are ways to do that, but it's complicated, and you're probably not going to see the benefit till more the end of the TIF. It's not something that you're going to see anytime soon. So you have to cover all your obligations with the existing TID before you can donor to someone else, which TID 3 has a ton of debt service out there that is going out for another 5-10 years yet. So that has to be covered, and you have to show that cash flow. You're going to have to prove all that through that process. So it's complicated. The long answer is yes, but there's a lot in between there.
And I'll add to Greg's comment too, that's something that you would do at the end of the life cycle of the tax incremental finance district, not so much on a project by project basis. So at the end, or when TID 3 is closing out and you recognize TID 5 has some challenges, as Greg had mentioned, you go through a very iterative process in order to take those funds and instead of basically distributing them to the taxing jurisdictions, you're taking those funds and putting them into another tax incremental finance district to subsidize that. That's why the project plan is important, the amendment, and then ultimately the approval of the Joint Review Board, which is made up of all the different taxing jurisdictions, have to say, yes, it is in our interest to make sure that this other TID that is struggling is financially solvent, so that we're going to take those dollars from 3, put them into 5, with the knowledge that we're making that one solvent. And so there's that decision. So again, you're looking at it more globally, district to district versus district to project.
And TIF 5 has 20 years yet, correct?
Correct.
Could you repeat that? How many years, Greg? I didn't get that.
20.
2041 is the last expenditure year in that TIF.
41. Okay, thank you.
So, believe it or not, I might be reconsidering my multiple votes, primarily because of the affordableness. You know, I would say I'm in a bit of a different,
And see who was talking, sorry.
sorry, no, that's okay. I would say, you know, I'm, not to get like too personal, but I'm a single 30-year-old individual, and yes, I do hope to have a family one day, but if I don't, I'm not going to be able to afford, at least at this point in my life, a $2,000 or a $3,000 a month payment. And if I want to stay, I mean, I by chance lucked out getting my house, but I had to move in with my parents until I found that one, you know? And I think right now, at this very state of our village, the affordableness might not, I mean, it's huge, but it might not be as important. But I mean, I even think of friends that I know, personally, married 30 years and divorced, you know? I think of that type of situation where, unfortunately, divorce rates are increasing. People aren't getting married. There are a lot of different things that if I eventually, as a single, you know, I have to keep that in mind. And I think that's where the affordableness side of it, that's the most appealing to me. Because again, at this exact moment, it might not be needed, but I think in 10, 15 years, when, like I said, unfortunately, divorce rates are higher and things of that nature, and you start having more single family incomes versus dual family incomes, I think this price range is key. I also know that I have a ton of friends who cannot afford to buy, and this is housing, but I have a ton of friends who cannot afford to buy, and I, right now, would not be able to upgrade my house in Ashwaubenon, because there's my price range, and then there's about double that. There's nothing in between, you know? I have what I bought my house at, and then we have a huge jump to what you would basically need a dual income family to be able to afford. So I'm cognizant of that if I ever do want to upgrade and I am still a single income, I might have to leave Ashwaubenon. And that's because it doesn't exist. It's the thing I think I will remember the most, as Aaron told me, it's a phenomenon called the missing middle. And we don't have that. And this is our potential opportunity to get one segment, which is senior housing, in that missing middle. And that's where we might not be able to get all our single family houses in that point. You know, we are a very desired village, but there is a part of me that says if we can get the missing middle captured somewhere, that's key, because that's something a lot of places don't have unless they become run down and prices go down or something like that. So that's my biggest fear, I would say, you know, being in my situation and knowing people. So I still don't know, but that is one of the biggest drivers and the biggest positives for me on this one, is just knowing personally so many people that, unfortunately, I think we have more poverty in Ashwaubenon than what we think, you know, but I don't know. That's my 2 cents.
Okay,
Joe, just a comment from my perspective. I really haven't changed my mind. I guess I have to give kudos to for Jay for doing his analysis. His analysis is more from the practical day-to-day financial scenario of citizens here in the community, which was eye-opening, I guess, from my perspective. And Sig, you did point out, yeah, that I did say that generally speaking, a TIF provides the infrastructure to serve these areas, but when you're putting 100% of the TIF into the development, you have no dollars left over to do that infrastructure work. Hence, it is commendable you've offered to provide those dollars to do that, but the bottom line is that the TIF typically does that because there's dollars left over. In this case, there are not dollars left over. And it should be pointed out as well that we have spent significant dollars just to the west of here purchasing properties. And an analogy would be with the Packers buying, going up for a free agent. You spend big dollars here, and pretty soon you don't have any dollars left over. And that's, I think, where we are at from a municipal perspective. And I'm more cognizant of the village's finances, or I'll use the term maybe not cognizant, more sensitive to the village's finances and where we are with TIF number 5 at this particular point in time. And I have not been a proponent of that location, of not having parking. And based on some of the things that Jay laid out here, who is it really going to serve? Are we in such a rush to get senior housing and affordable housing that perhaps we can't see the forest because of the trees? And I can't support it. So that's my 2 cents.
Do we think we'll ever get affordable housing?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I struggle with hearing that other senior communities' rents are $3,000 a month.
Mm-hmm.
I struggle with that.
Right, but I believe we can. I think we have to continue to work on this, and I don't know, and like I offered before, I would really love to sit down with our seniors and actually come up with what is it that they're really looking for. I really believe every one of us up here has a different picture of what that is. And I hear exactly what you're saying, and I can appreciate what you're saying too. So, because of my daughter, so I absolutely understand where you're coming from. I believe we can do that here. I just don't know that this is the right, there's just the TIF thing, and I look at it, I look at where it is, and I've done the negatives and the positives with it. I go, man, be able for me in 10 years, be able to walk out my door and walk down the distillery and that, I'm going, oh, hey, that'd be pretty cool. But yet I look at it, and I'll be honest, the townhomes, they bother me. They really bother me because I know what that is across from Parkview. And that area, that really concerns me, that mixing of that. I believe we can find in Ashwaubenon. I honestly believe it. There are parcels of land that are vacant right now. That are, I think it's going to take a lot of effort on our part. What I don't want to do is stop those efforts because now we got 60 units. 60 units isn't enough.
Well,
if you go out to Bellevue, what they have out there and the size of Bellevue compared to Ashwaubenon, I mean, that's an unbelievable facility in the Bellevue Senior Living Community. Went by there again today. Unbelievable. They got a swimming pool. They've got activities directors. They've got all of this stuff. Our people here in Ashwaubenon are seniors who go, oh, this is great. If they don't want to cook, they can go downstairs. They got food that is coming out of their kitchen right there.
For how much a month?
I looked at it, it was $2,000 a month.
And see, I'm not disagreeing. I'm just trying to put a different thoughts on it. The part where I struggle with is to get the affordable, it almost always is going to take something from the state. And I think Aaron and Joel and you guys and your expertise, we've been searching, and like Aaron said, if we lock this one in, his next thing is going to be to get more. It's not going to stop, right? You always say, we got to find senior housing, and once we get senior housing, we have to find more senior housing. So I don't think we'll stop with 60 units. My struggle is to actually get the affordable side of things. You almost always need a contribution from the state. And every developer that has come in here, projects have been quashed because we can't justify the rents to cover the construction costs. And I've only been on the board for 3.5 years, 4 years, and the construction costs, obviously, we know are very volatile. And to get the affordable side of things, it will not happen just from a developer. It's going to have to get something else. And that's where I struggle. Now, it doesn't mean I'm 100% on board, because again, just because it's in our lap doesn't mean we have to say yes. And I don't want to rush to a decision. I think everyone here can agree we have not rushed to a decision. Seems really quick, but we have been discussing this for 3 months now. Or what feels like 3 months, I think. So it feels like a quick decision, but it's the state aspect. It's that affordable aspect that if we say no now, we might get senior housing, but it's not going to be in the affordable range.
Yeah, my feedback there is, I am not sure that that is really the major driver of our seniors in Ashwaubenon. I hear from your perspective, I understand it. Everybody tends to bundle that together.
But-
Senior affordable housing, yeah, what is that to somebody? We got to remember, everybody that's going to be coming out of that house is right now paying zero mortgage.
Exactly. So they're paying
So-
zero, and then they go to paying 2,000 a
Yep.
month. You know,
That's
they
why-
probably have their houses paid off.
But even to pay 1,000, and I lost a garage, I have nothing else, you know,
don't
I'm
have a yard to
I'm
take
gaining
care of.
nothing else. I got a smaller place. That's where that's my struggle, Ally. I just go,
I know.
But that's reflected in the price, Jay.
I know.
Which is,
I know.
and to,
I don't disagree.
and to worry about what other communities are doing. Yeah, you want to watch those things. But again, in business, you can't always worry about what your competition is doing. You have to do what's right for your community. If you sit there and worry about what your competition is doing, you're going to freeze yourself to death. I've had that conversation with other business owners that are in my business that are not even in Ashwaubenon. And I tell them, you run a great business. You know, don't worry about your competition down there. Keep doing what you're doing. And this isn't the end of senior housing, you know, this project. If it would go through, like Allison said, you know, this is just the beginning. This is the affordable part of it. We got to start somewhere, and this isn't a rush to judgment. This isn't, in my opinion, going through with this just because we have to get something started. We got a reputable business that's proven project after project that they've been successful. They know what they're doing. They want to be here for a reason. If we can get the tax credits through, make this affordable, this is a start in that area, along with the project that's across the street that's going to quickly develop. And then the you know, to help the TIF out, the revenue is coming in. I don't want to pass this up.
My last comment, and then I'll stop unless I randomly get something. The one thing that really, I want to say, sells me, or, you know, I've been sleeping on this a lot, as we all have been. The starting age is 55, I believe you said.
Correct.
The part that gets me is I think of, I mean, I think there's a couple people on this board in that range. If they get 10 years out of it, if they get 15 years out of it, from age 55 to age 70, that's probably a prime location for a lot of people. And I've been the hater of the location since the get-go. But I always think, okay, if I had a 10-year lease, that's a pretty long tenant, you know? And if at 65, I need to go somewhere where it's maybe not as loud, or I need covered parking, you still have the ability to do that. You're not buying the unit. Now, at 65, it's going to be harder to all of a sudden go and buy a house, you know? What do you do there? That's why we need to get the next senior living a complex in. But that is something that did kind of open my eyes, is that when I think senior living, I think like 70 and above, that there is that range. So that is the part that gets me with the covered parking. You know what you're getting when you sign the lease, and you can get out when you need to get out, when it's time for you. I'm done.
Okay, so all of this discussion has been absolutely great. Actually, we've had a lot of internal discussion that has involved a lot of these different topics. Senior housing versus affordable senior housing versus senior community. We've discussed this for a lot of years. But I think what we really need to focus on right now is the development agreement. For me, this is nothing against the project. I think it's a good project. I look at this, it is, I'm going to estimate a $4.1 million assessment because it's rent-based assessment. And we will, with the land included, we will typically be giving up 1.67 million. That's where I struggle. That's where I really, really struggle. So that's why I'm probably, again, I'm not going to be able to support this TIF ask. And it has nothing to do with your project. It's just the finances. It's the finances within the deal. So.
I think you all brought up a good point. I understand the financing of it, of the TIF program. We didn't have any problem in giving away TIF for a number of projects that started here in TIF 5. We've got a couple of them on hold right now because of our situation with our health issues. I think we discussed this, like Mary said, for quite some time on what the people are looking for. I'm in the age bracket where I've seen a lot of people retire in this community and they all left. Majority of them that I am personally related to or relations with them, they all moved to some type of an apartment. There's very few that moved into a retirement community. I agree with you, Jay. A retirement community is great. I mean, there's a lot of things that keep them there. And that's why they went there. We are not associated to retirement communities like the southern states are because of our climate. We may have areas where we do create single-family housing with, let's just put it this way, where the seniors are more comfortable with because there's more of their age brackets. Do they call it senior living? I don't really think so. But it's not cheap. You're looking at some of these projects, you don't get into nothing for $350,000. They may dug a hole in the middle of this complex to put up a water bubbler to think you're on a waterfront, but it's all the view. What we've got here is something that it's the start of affordable housing. It's a start to seniors to hopefully keep them here. It would be nice to see the seniors stay here to open up the homes to bring in the younger people. The younger people are not bringing children, though. They bring dogs. They bring pets. Our school system still is looking for outside help in order to have enough students in the schools. So we're always welcoming new people, don't get me wrong. But something that I struggle with that our time is short. We only got a few days to make these people to make their mind up on what they're going to do with our vote. We only have this project for a short period of time to make a decision on so that it could move forward. It will never come again. developers do not have this opportunity that's in front of them right now. And that's one of the things that we're in a crunch time for, and that's the reason for this meeting tonight. So I know it's a risk. I've talked to several business owners, and we all agree we take a risk every day we get up. You people take a risk every day getting up, and hopefully you don't get hit by a truck when you leave the front door of your house. But in business, it's a little different story. You're making decisions at the snap of a finger sometimes. So I think it's a risk for a village. I don't have a problem with that, but I think it's a risk we've got to take. We didn't have problems spending on millions of dollars in the developments that we do have in TIF 5. It took us less time to build a baseball stadium than in the time we got invested in this. That baseball stadium was one meeting with the village board to approve it, and from there it was done with an agreement, and that was approved by the village board. So I will be for this project. I know it's a risk, but I'm hoping for the things to come at the end. And I believe, Jay, what you're talking about, we do need more a type of that project that you're talking about. But it's going to take some time for that to happen, and it's going to cost more money. And the people are going to pay more money. Your project over by Parkview, I've watched that being redeveloped, I think, for the third time since I've been around this property, or this village. I do know through talking to our safety department, it's being run a lot better now. They do have a good management staff in there, and that's what this property is going to need if they get it, is a good management staff. I understand the no garages. I was in the area when we had 235 homes. They let these people build homes and not a garage. That was stupid. You created your own mess. You know, these people are willing to look at carports, you know, and older people don't want to shovel snow. I had a good conversation with somebody Sunday, and that was his first thing. I like the idea. I don't like going to shovel my car out of the snowbank, you know. So I hope they do something as far as some type of a portable thing to give that amenity to them. So I'll probably go on a little longer, but I'm still for the project. I think they're going to do a good job for us. It's a risk, but it's a risk taking.
Okay. Any more thoughts, questions? Okay. Gary, you made the motion.
Okay, I made a motion
originally.
at the last meeting to approve this. Now I've got to make a motion to approve the updated development agreement with the TIF incentive of $1.2 million and the staff report conditions of approval.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Everybody understands? All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Okay. No? No.
Nay.
Nay.
4 to 3. Okay,
That passes 4 to 3.
yep. Okay, so 5B, action regarding site plan review for proposed senior housing and townhome development at the 680 block of Mike McCarthy Way, parcel VA-56-4-1. Aaron? Oh, we have, we need a reconsideration on that. So does that come from trees? Okay. Does anybody want to make a motion to reconsider this item?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to reconsider this item. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. Okay, we have that action to reconsider the site plan review.
Okay, the requested site plan review was actually reviewed and recommended for approval by the Site Plan Review Committee and the Planning Commission in I believe it was November. In terms of the project, you're familiar with it. It consists of the townhomes located on Borvan Avenue and extending along the east property line to the north, as well as the senior housing apartment buildings located on Mike McCarthy Way. There was quite a bit of discussion at both the Site Plan Review Committee and Planning Commission regarding the need or potential need for carports. That was the discussion that was here as well. I'll probably leave that for discussion purposes. There are a few recommended conditions of approval. Nothing out of the ordinary. I'll just list those off for reference. Approval of a development agreement by the Ashwaubenon Village Board. Approval of the sale of land by the Ashwaubenon Community Development Authority. All metal panels are to utilize concealed fasteners and have a 3-foot minimum masonry wainscot from the finished grade. Provide screening for any rooftop or ground-mounted mechanical equipment 8 inches or greater in diameter or square dimension and visible from right-of-way or adjacent properties. Orientation of the front elevation of the townhomes should be toward Borvan for the east-west townhomes and internal for the north-south townhomes. Include a landscape berm or opaque decorative fencing along the east property line. Review parking lot landscaping requirements and depict parking lot landscaping as may be required. Curbing is required for the drive lanes and parking lot. In terms of stormwater, discharge is limited to 12-inch stub capacity. They'll be utilizing the Ashland Pond for water quality. There's, of course, a buy-in cost associated with that. From public safety, drive lanes throughout the parking lot are to be designed to accommodate fire department access, and I believe they already have looked at that. Refer to the municipal code for Knox box requirements and work with public safety for location of those Knox boxes. A private fire hydrant may be needed in the center of the parking lot. Verified distance requirements using International Fire Code or IFC 2015 and existing hydrants on Mike McCarthy Way. In terms of forestry, please substitute the red maple on planting schedule to another species as red maple develop chlorosis. Suggestions include Accolade elm, Kentucky coffee tree, or ginkgo. Then also consider substituting another cultivar of linden for the proposed Redmont linden due to significant mess the cultivar creates. In terms of bike and ped, include a bicycle parking facility compatible with the guidelines of the Association of Pedestrian and Bicycle Professionals near the primary entrance to the apartment building. So those were the recommended conditions of approval from both Site Plan Review Committee and Plan Commission. And as I mentioned, there was some discussion about carports and the need or not need for those. I'd be happy to answer any questions for you. Otherwise, SIG is also here to answer questions for you as well.
Being on the Site Plan Committee, I do want to discuss the carports. I told one of your associates with you to take a ride to Ledgeview and take a look at, no, Bellevue that is in, and take a look at what they have. I do not want to see what they have. I want something that looks professional. I want something that is a permanent site, something that the people will enjoy going to get their car and understanding that it is safe where it's at. I've had the incident where there was a carport next to some property where I have my business, and through the heavy snowfall that happened, it pushed it down because it couldn't support the weight. So I just want to make sure that this is a structure that will survive some weather, because I know it's going to be a flat roof. I hope you do with what we're talking about when we come to something that looks desirable for your own property and for the area that we're trying to create in that area. You think you can bring business to us. I want to make sure you make it look good for other people to come and look at your property and say, this is a nice place to come. So that's all that was my biggest concern. I think garbage enclosures were taken care of. I don't think we got an issue outside there. So I think we're okay with that. So the carports are a must for something that's nice.
Are those official carports?
So it's interesting. There was discussion at the Site Plan Review Committee, and finally, whether you would require them or not. Mm-hmm. And where we left it is, it's more of a market discussion. We're willing to do it. I think that I understand, especially from Gary, the importance of that in terms of the perception of quality. And if we did something like that, we'd probably charge some nominal amount like you would for underground parking, so it doesn't come without a cost. But I understand the intent, and if that's something that the village board felt was super important in terms of the quality level, we have done carports before, and we find them to be basically, I'll say, almost as accepted as underground parking, just because they do the trick. They keep the snow off the cars. So we're willing to do it, but it was not a requirement of the site plan review committee, so it'd have to come basically from the board as, you know, to add the carports, and we'd have to do then is go back to the site plan review committee with the final design, is what I understand.
You wouldn't need to. It could be site, staff approval.
So staff
right?
approval? Okay.
I mean, I'm good with not requiring it or anything. I just didn't know if it was officially there or kind of what the thoughts were.
Well, Gary, what did the site plan committee want?
Well, it was discussed, what we want is some permanent type of structure. What I was referring to in Bellevue, it was just temporary, not it wasn't even an enclosure, it was just a roof, you know, that the wind could blow around. So we're looking at a permanent, you know, something decorative that fits the area. I think we discussed putting it on, I think we did something on that west edge there to blend in with the side of the apartment building so that the people wouldn't have to walk too far. You know, something else that just popped into my mind, you know, I know you can charge additional for that a garage or shelter, if you want to call it that. Some people do it. I know our apartment complexes here, you do get one garage per unit, and some people charge you for that. So that's strictly up to the landowner. But you could put them behind the units too.
I guess if I could, staff would probably recommend including the carports, just kind of based upon the discussion that you've had at village board, site plan committee. I believe it was plan commission that said maybe you don't need them. You know, based on what I've heard from the village board, it sounds like the general consensus is that it would be a good approach to include some sort of sheltered parking.
I agree, Aaron.
We need to, if you're going to do it, you need to have that parking in there. I can tell you for sure, both examples of my mother and my aunt, they would not have moved to the places that they did if they did not have a garage.
And they're a nice amenity.
Yeah.
I won't disagree.
And I also agree with what Gary's saying, the ones out in that complex in Bellevue, nothing more than an airplane hangar with just a piece of tin over it.
Right.
That's not the right thing.
No.
And incidentally, just to add, you know, it was technical infeasibility why we didn't do underground parking. There's shallow groundwater, and basically we couldn't do it without some kind of crazy 24/7 pumps going on, which it was infeasible. So we're open to doing something there.
So that would have to be part of the motion.
Without a doubt, and that will come through the site plan committee.
No.
No, staff
Oh.
board.
Right. If it's just the addition of the carports, basically where there's existing parking, we can take care of that administratively.
Oh, okay. You know what we're looking for. Okay. So we need an approval on this?
Yes.
Okay, I'll make a motion that we approve the, where am I here? Approve the request for the site plan with the staff conditions as presented,
And carports.
with the carports, yes.
Okay, there's a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the site plan with staff conditions and carports. Everybody understands? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Okay, thank you. So now I need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.